Hi guys, welcome back to the Talking Reality podcast. In today's episode, we are talking
mindset with mindset coach Gethyn Hill.
We're going to be discussing the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and Gethyn is going to share some of the secrets he uses to help his clients.
So give us a like, follow and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Gethyn, I suppose the first question, which should be on most people's minds, what is mindset?
Yeah.
Like if I'm someone and I'm opening up a mindset book, what is mindset?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different interpretations out there, but it is literally the setting of the mind. That's how I like to see it.
Okay.
So if you think of your brain being in a certain position or angle, that's kind of how I see it from a psychological perspective, is the setting of the mind. So we have everything that we experience or everything that we are today, that's, you, me, sat here, is based on all the experiences and everything that we've gone through in our lives, right?
Yeah, of course, man.
And that causes our mindset to be in a certain position at any one point in time.
It does make sense.
Yeah. As they say, what you do today, you'll be tomorrow. What you did yesterday, you'll be today. So I think the setting of the mind is how I see it as. So
it's almost like a reflection of your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a fun fact, right? So at any one moment, we receive up to 4 million, I think, pieces of information per second.
Jesus.
And we can only naturally we can't process all that information, right? So even when I'm sat here, if you think that's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But even just sat here, I can see every single object in the room directly looking at it, or in my peripheral vision. I can see its size, its density, its distance from me. I can see its what it's made from, its color. So we're processing that at every single second.
It's like a lot of sensory information and coming in from everywhere.
But we all interpret that information differently. So even though we're all sat here together, we all see and feel different things. And that's based on our experiences, our filters, and how our mind is set.
It's an interesting explanation.
It is, yeah.
And that's thrown my little brain, if I'm honest.
Well,
I'm sitting here thinking, can I see everything in the room? And I'm thinking, yeah, I can actually. Measuring everything. That's an interesting explanation.
You can feel the settee behind you.
Exactly, and you don't really. I've never thought about that. About how
because
much is actually going on in your head.
Almost like subconscious, isn't it?
Exactly.
We don't consciously think, I can feel that. I can feel gravity, basically. Do you know what I mean? Like it's one of them.
I think the figures are. Hopefully, I'm not wrong. We can process 126 pieces of information, but we can only focus on 7.
Right.
At any one moment in time.
So I explain to people making mistakes, like most of Mike's fashion choices.
Here we go.
So I'm just saying, that explains people making mistakes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of things we do on
human error,
subconscious programming. So we just do it on autopilot.
Yeah, man, I'm with you.
So we don't actually think about a lot of things that we do.
Yeah, you just do it.
It's like a program that's been downloaded, isn't it? And you're still running off that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that'll be based on the internal filters that we have. Like I said, are based on our previous experiences. But there are 3 key filters that we do when we process information, right? Which is deletion, distortion, and generalization. So as the information comes into our brain, we either delete it because we think it's irrelevant,
right,
based on our previous experiences. We distort it to fit our perspective, or we generalize it to try and fit it into one category or another. And all that's based on our experiences and how we've kind of got to where we are today.
And I guess that shapes our reality then.
100%.
And how we perceive the world.
Yeah.
It's interesting, man.
Absolutely.
It is interesting, yeah.
When did you become aware of like mindset? Because your average person, I'm sure, doesn't think too deeply into like everything you just said. Do you know what I mean? Like because we are like running off.
Some of that was some new information to me.
Yeah, because most of us are running off subconscious, so we don't. At what point for you was it like this is a thing?
In terms of that information, that's learned.
Yeah,
that's through study and courses and everything else. But so that's more recently over the last few years. But from a mindset perspective, I was that kid, right? So I would watch like YouTube videos. And we were talking about Eric Thomas beforehand.
Oh, Eric Thomas, the guru.
Yeah. I would watch
The main man.
those YouTube videos at the age of 13, 14, 15. Because that was, it was like an escape. It was an escape from reality, right? So I've always known of self-development and the need to push yourself.
Yeah, man.
I guess that's just been a practice, really. And believe me, I've got it wrong.
Yeah,
There's been times I've got it wrong,
yeah.
you know, which is not easy. But I would say it that's where it started, kind of 12, maybe 13, 14, just watching videos.
So the reason for this podcast is the same reason for your development of mindset, Eric
Yeah.
Thomas.
The
guys
we've both, me and Nate, have listened to a lot of like Eric Thomas, and before that,
Well,
sort of.
I had him on this morning when you come over, didn't I?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
And that was on like 80, 90 volume, man. All the flats were listening to it. They were.
I think all the residents of this building heard that.
They've
yeah.
definitely heard Eric Thomas, man. 100%.
Yeah. Now they're all going to start podcasts. You know. It's just,
Nah, but yeah, you know, I get what you said. It is an escape from reality, and he is. He kind of introduced me to like the idea of mindset, but I suppose I haven't really developed it into a way that you have. Now, obviously, you've taken it further, and you now do it as a job. You're a mindset coach. Yeah. So where did that begin?
I think it's been in the making, right? But I didn't know it. So really, really randomly, at around the time of COVID, really,
right.
I was working as an insurance broker, and I was like, I said to my partner, I just want to do something. I just want to do something different. I want to work. I've always wanted to work for myself, but I want to help people. Don't know how. How am I going to do that? What am I going to do? Shall I help them become an insurance broker? Not sure that's going to go down too well.
Is that helping them? Or?
I don't know.
I'm joking. No offense to an insurance broker.
But my partner came across an ad
Right.
on Instagram. And this is how powerful sharing your goals and dreams are, because I talk about that a lot. But she came across an ad to be a coach. And she was like, why don't you do this? I didn't know being a coach was a thing. I saw the YouTubers and Eric Thomas and the likes of them. I didn't know I was a coach. They were just motivational speakers. People who had been there and done it and just trying to help other people, right? And she saw this ad, and I kind of looked at it, got some more information. I was like, yeah, this is it. So I think it was probably two years ago or so. And that's really random. But if I hadn't shared that goal with her, she wouldn't have shown me that ad. But that's kind of where it started.
Remember so you obviously you left your job then as an insurance broker?
No, not straight away. No, so I'd build the income first.
Oh, so you built that on the side whilst you were working full time?
Yeah.
Because that's actually a really interesting point, because a lot of times when people want to go and start their own business, there's always this idea that you've got to give everything else up, and like you've got to have tunnel vision to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
But actually, more often than not, it's going to be impractical for you to do that, because if you've got no money to support you at that initial stage, you almost need to have something on the side. So that that's interesting. That
it's a catch-22. If you're in a position to do that, then that's great. Then if you can take that risk, then do it. But like I'm an advocate of people following their goals, right?
Big
following
time,
their
man.
dreams. Yeah. But like my reality at the time, we had a mortgage, baby, bills, everything else, right? COVID had not long started. Not really sure what was gonna happen. So I had to build it on the side, and that's I've 40 hours a week in work, playing football, which for me is another 15 to 20 hours a week, and building a business. So it was a hard graft.
of course, man. And being a dad and
and
partner
on top of the other things.
Yeah.
So it's catch-22. Do you give it all up and risk everything, or do you put yourself through that graft and literally not sleep? That was pretty much the reality. And it did pay off for me, because then eventually in October I managed to leave the job. But it's a catch-22, and you can see why a lot of people might not be able to kind of make that transition.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of barriers, isn't there? And sometimes they're not even real barriers; they're just psychological ones.
Definitely.
And then,
some people are afraid of their success as well, so they don't move, because they become comfortable, don't they, in their current environment, and they think about what could be, and sometimes it's just too scary for them to even make that like first move.
Yeah.
And
Fear is a big thing.
sort of jump out of the airplane, that sort of moment, they just can't do it.
Yeah, fear is a huge thing.
Did your parents have any sort of like these similar traits of, you know, having a burning ambition and wanting to help people, or are you like the complete opposite to them? Or
Yeah, so my mum was a dreamer, right? That's what I call my mum. My mum was a dreamer.
okay,
Never action, no action. It was always, she wanted a lot of things, but there was no action to go and get those things, right?
Out of curiosity, is your mum still?
Yeah.
What does she think of your success?
She's proud.
Proud.
Yeah. I talk openly about my family in my posts and
Oh, okay.
a lot of my business. So I talk openly about that stuff. So I'm not going to get in trouble.
No, that's all right, man. I just wondered.
So my mum was a dreamer. There was no action. There was just dreams. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. My dad was a grafter. He's a grafter. Like never low paid jobs, factory working, delivery driver at one point. He was just worked
he worked
hard.
a lot of hours.
Yeah.
strong work
Hard.
ethic.
Yeah, really strong. And I think that definitely impacted me growing up because I saw that. But they don't really look at mindset or anything like that, you know. So I think I came from a position of I saw what they were and I wanted to be the opposite, if that makes sense.
Really, it was like
I don't want to be that.
Their examples of something you didn't want to be.
Yeah. So I look at my mum and I actually had a real kind of period where I didn't get on with my mum because it was almost, I was not ashamed, but I was angry.
That she hadn't acted upon her dreams.
Yeah. And what I saw growing up was, it was like, I don't want to be that. So what's the opposite?
Yeah.
Were you angry because you wanted more for her?
Definitely.
That's why.
Or you saw the potential in her dreams.
Both, yeah.
But couldn't
both.
understand why perhaps she's not taking those steps.
Yeah, both definitely. And I think that probably, thinking back to it, had a lot to play as to why I went down this path.
Yeah.
Because I saw her ability just doing nothing. I've always believed, and I still believe now, my mum's got a lot of ability. But the question is, why couldn't she put that into practice?
She still has the opportunity now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, we're doing some work now to try and change things. But I always had that question growing up of what's stopping her. So I think that probably leads into why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, is to help people cross that barrier.
Yeah, and answer that question.
I'm a big fan of external influence.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that certain people may be wired in a different way, but what you're exposed to is what you become. So by the age of 2, an adult has, I think, 1.5 billion neurons or connections in the brain. By the age of 2, you have double. So you have a 2-year-old child has 3 million connections in the brain. And what happens after that is their connections die depending on what they're exposed to.
So what's stimulating it and keeping it going?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how you can have a 3-year-old child who speaks multiple languages.
A child genius sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, because they're exposed to that.
That would make sense.
Whatever they're not exposed to, the connections die.
Makes sense.
By the time they're an adult, they have 1.5, they have half the connections in the brain.
That's interesting, man.
Which is why I'm a big fan of nurture and kind of what you're exposed to, you become.
How do you change someone's mindset if they're like in a negative state of mind?
So it is a good question. Now, I do believe that someone needs to want to change. Right?
Yeah.
Because if someone's in a negative or fixed mindset, they're going to perceive the information that you're saying in their own way, the bias again, right? So first stage is someone needs to want to change, but I guess changing someone's mindset is first by figuring out what they need or what they want. So you can preach at someone until the cows come home about how they should do something or how they want to do something or they should want to do something, but it'll never land with them unless they see the benefit of doing that. So it needs to be done with deep work. So it needs to be in a deep conversation where you uncover reasons why they would want to change or should want to change. That's the key, is finding a reason. It's the same with the coffee habit. There has to be a reason for someone to change, and they have to understand that and realize that reason.
So kind of like they need to have a motivation,
100%.
therefore a stimulus to keep it going and keep it consistent. And
absolutely, it's working on your mindset and I don't want to say perfecting it, because it's a constant transition. It's a constant learning period. You're always learning new information. It's always a constant, you have to work at it, right? You never achieve this peak state of mind where, I have a great mindset now. That's it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, man.
Right? You're constantly working at it because there's always negative factors that are going to try and put you back down. You do work to get back up. So it is that constant work. So someone has to want to put that work in, and they're not going to want to put that work in unless they have a reason to do it. So I guess how do you change someone's mindset is by figuring out why they should change their mindset.
What's the reason?
What's the motivation?
I think what you've touched on is really interesting. You mentioned obviously a fixed mindset, and there's obviously a growth mindset, which is, ideally what I think you should be in. Now, it's interesting because I was having a conversation with my brother about this 2 weeks ago, and about the concept of being in a fixed mindset. So we were talking about forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a really powerful idea for me, because when you're really angry at someone or you've got deep hatred of someone who's done something bad to you, right? That is always going to affect you in a negative way. Always. It might not every day of your life, but there'll always be moments where it comes back into your head, right? And then that's a fixed mindset. Like, you're just always going to be angry and have hatred towards that person. But learning to forgive somebody, which is not an easy thing, depending on what they've done to you, obviously, but that is you taking control, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that, my brother and me had a bit of a disagreement in that respect. But for me, I think one thing I've learned in life is that there's things you can control. Like, you can control your reaction to things. And I'm not saying you can forgive everybody straight away after someone's hurt you or done something bad to you, of course. But that element of you taking control of a situation, for me, is the idea of a growth mindset. It's not just accepting something as it is. It's you having an element of control.
And that requires a lot of energy to be mad at someone.
Big time, man.
So you're spending a lot of energy on that.
But it is easier than forgiving someone. It is easier, because sometimes forgiving someone who's done something bad to you or has really, has caused a negative reaction in your life can be very difficult.
Yeah.
But
I think it comes down to ego.
Definitely, ego plays a huge
big factor. Yeah,
massive part. Yeah,
people are always going to do things that you don't agree with, or that they may hurt you. They may do something that you don't like. By holding on to that anger, it's an ego thing. It's that person's disrespected me, or they've violated me, or they've done something I don't like that isn't in line with what I want, and that is ego. And having the ability to step away from that ego is powerful. It is control. Have you been watching Inventing Anna, the series?
Can't say I've seen it, actually.
No,
I've heard good
yet.
things about it, but I haven't seen it.
Fantastic series. And there's a life coach in there, right? And she says such fantastic saying that I'll probably regurgitate in news. But she says, when you become angry, you are playing a role in someone else's story. So when you're angry at someone, you become the bad guy in their story. So you've gone from being in your own story and on your journey to jumping out of your lane into their lane, and now you're a character in their story. And by having the power and control to actually forgive them and just step back into your story and focus on you. Because ultimately, when you're in their story, you're no longer in yours.
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
Yeah. And obviously, again, you're wasting your energy, aren't you? If you're just applying it to, I'm going to be like mad, like someone pours out when you're on the road. You can carry that anger and you can take it home with you.
It ruins your day.
Yeah.
If you let it.
Yeah.
And it is, I talk
Builds
about
momentum, doesn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a habit. So it was a habit of mine. I had extreme anger growing up as a kid, and when I started, and then I got into probably quite a few fights because of it. But I grew up watching my dad fight. So my dad was an extremely angry person, huge road rage. So if someone cut him up, he would get out the car when there were lights, go and bang on their window, open their door, start fighting. Lo and behold, that's what I grew up watching. So guess what I did? I had huge road rage, or anger would be my first response. So it's a habit that builds inside, and it's exactly as you said. It builds momentum. It builds habits.
Interesting.
But it will drain your energy. I talked earlier about protecting your energy and how I do like to protect my energy, because energy is invaluable. You can either choose to have your energy levels here and which is in a state of kind of control and happiness, or you can choose to be down here, and whatever you focus on is where you'll be. And I think anger is one of the ones that drains the energy the most.
One thing you said there, which interesting to me, you can choose. Now, regarding choice, I know one thing we want to talk about is trauma. So changing your mindset when you've not come from a place of significant trauma, I would argue, is probably easier than somebody who's come from horrific trauma, such as sexual abuse, domestic violence, that sort of thing. I would argue it's probably a lot harder to change your mindset in that instance. What's your perspective on that?
So we've all experienced trauma, right? At some
level.
At some level, we've all experienced it. Of course, people have experienced it a lot worse than others. Now, in terms of changing your mindset, I think anyone can do it. That's my honest opinion. But the deeper the trauma, a change of mindset is no longer enough. They have to deal with the trauma first. And sometimes that requires deep work, whether it's counseling or whatever it is. So they need to overcome that first before they can change their mindset, because they can change their mindset and move on and be positive and go on and achieve great things, no doubt. But unless the trauma is dealt with, it'll always be there. And there's a lady, Gemma, I'm not going to remember her name now. She talks about it in her book. You tend to see high performers who come from a place of either trauma or kind of negativity, or they were poor or whatever it is, and they're always trying to outrun something. And trauma can be one of them. You can outrun it, but it'll always be there unless it's dealt with first and foremost. So I guess anyone can change their mindset regardless of their past, but I think it goes deeper than that and needing to address the issue as well.
Yeah, I think it's... Sometimes you hear people say things like, it's easy for you to say that, you've not experienced my life. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is that if somebody's in that mindset, it's got... I guess you are right, though. You've got to learn to deal with that trauma first before you can entertain the idea.
Yeah. It depends. Yeah, it does. That is right. You do have to deal with the trauma, but if someone's coming from a position of, you haven't lived my life, then there is the element of, there is always someone worse off. So yes, we may not have lived your life, wherever the trauma is, but there's always someone worse than you. So you can stay in that place of pity where you feel sorry for yourself, or you can do something about it. Now, yes, I'm not saying that's easy. Not saying that they can just flip a switch. But if someone stays in that position of you haven't lived my life, you don't know how hard it is. Okay, I may not have, but someone has. Someone out there has overcome what you've done, what has happened to you. You're not, respectfully, you're not special. You're not unique. You're not the only person in that situation. So find someone who's been in that situation, learn from them, and overcome it, essentially.
I think for me, like you mentioned seeing other people's trauma. I think what helped for me was seeing someone like Eric Thomas, like coming from what he's come from. And then I look at my background, I think he definitely had it worse, right? He was homeless and stuff. But I think there's great power in that. Like if you can look at someone else's story and go, okay, well, they had it worse, but look how successful they are. That can be a great motivator, because that's certainly, like, if I hadn't seen people or been exposed to people like Eric Thomas, I don't know where my motivations would be, because I'd think it's not possible for someone like me because of the background that I'm from. But if I see someone else who's done great things and been a success, then suddenly it becomes believable for me. So I think you can either go two ways. You can kind of be the fetus mindset where you're going down a rabbit hole, or you can take great like motivation from someone else's story.
It's probably that exposure again, though, isn't it?
It is, man.
If someone's not exposed to the bigger world, the larger world,
Yeah.
and they think that their story is the worst story ever,
Yeah.
they're always going to feel like there's no way out.
Because they're going to feel isolated as well. Because when people experience trauma, usually, like you will feel like, oh, this is only happening to me, or like, why does it have to happen to me? You don't know, like, next door neighbor could be going through something 10 times worse, but not even show it. Do you know what I mean? So I think you're right. Like when you open yourself to the wider world, then you can seek more motivation to be like, oh, actually, this guy come off this estate and now look at him, he's flying. Or this woman did this.
Well, yeah. It's always a difficult conversation, right? When you talk about trauma and people's experiences, because people can be touchy, people can get their backs up. But what I would say is, if you think your story is the worst story out there, let's go and visit a Paralympics village.
Yeah.
Let's go and visit a camp where soldiers have had their legs blown off. Let's go and surround ourselves with them, and then let's see how bad your story is.
Exactly, man.
You know? So there is, yes, things are bad. Yes, life is tough and some shit things happen to people out there. But I think Will Smith talks about it. It's not your fault. I think this is what he says. It's not your fault that things have happened to you.
Yeah.
Or it's not yours, but it is your responsibility to fix it.
So one thing I want to bring up is kind of like something me and Mike were talking about earlier. So the idea of national minimum wage, we were thinking about that, and like, obviously, majority of people are being paid the national minimum wage or just above. Now that word minimum, right? So we got up like the Oxford Dictionary and just looked at that, and it just says the least, the smallest. It's there's this idea of you being below people. And that sort of, what kind of a mindset does that create within people? Do you think? For me, it's it's a negative label. What do you think about that?
I think society as a whole labels people, right? That's what we're all used to. We're all used to being labeled in one category or another. Now, I think if you look into that, 100%, the being labeled as earning the minimum wage no doubt has a subconscious effect. But I think everything is geared towards, be careful with how controversial I am now, but everything is geared towards that control, right? And putting people within their labels. Because let me flip that. What if everyone was ambitious? What if everyone wanted to run their own business? What if everyone wanted to be a millionaire? What effect would that have on the government? What effect would that have on society? There would be no one to, no, this is not picking on any trade, but there would be no one to maybe clean the toilets, to do the lower paid jobs. So I personally believe, 100%, there is a need for the government, whoever it is, to label people and put them in those categories, and to probably purposely belittle people and to make them feel inadequate, to not want to go on and do more. Because if everyone went on to do more, who would be left?
It's an interesting perspective. What do you think?
I agree with that. You know,
You think that it should be labelled as that?
no, I don't.
Oh, right. Okay,
No, I don't agree. It should be, but I was just saying that. I think
get the
I think
purpose behind it.
No, not even that. I don't agree with it one bit. But I think it goes bigger than that. It goes bigger than just labeling
I'm with
minimum
you.
wage. There is a the way that this country is and the world is set up is to keep you in your place,
Of course, yeah.
right? We are fed constantly with negative news. We're fed constantly with the bad things. We're fed constantly with, oh, be careful, don't do that because it's risky. You should just be safe. You should just stay where you are, right? Because that's where they need you. That's where they need us.
Keeps the system running.
It keeps the system running. Because if everyone was ambitious, who would do the things that nobody really wants to do? You know, no one grows up wanting to pick up rubbish, for example, right? But it's a huge part of society. Keeps neighborhoods clean. It's valuable.
Yeah.
It's a valuable trade. It's a valuable job. Picking up the bins. Like, I'm thankful for my bin because my bins would be overrunning.
Of course, yeah.
So people need to keep people in those pigeonholes and in those in a state of, I'm not good enough to do anything more, because it benefits them. It benefits the government.
And it's working.
It works for the government, but it's not. Is it working for the people in?
No, but on the whole, it works, doesn't it? That's why we've got a relatively stable society. Like, it's not perfect, is it? But if it wasn't there, it potentially be anarchy, wouldn't it? Like,
maybe
chaotic. It depends on how you look at things. It's like, I know Joe Rogan brought that up in one of his podcasts, and he said, well, actually there's potential for us to all do well, and we all do something creative that we enjoy. It's like, just say, I'm good at swimming, or fishing, I can give you a fish, you can do something for me. That could be taking the rubbish out and we trade. Or I can get fruits and I'll trade that for a fish, or something like that. So everyone has a role in the society. We all have a value, and we all take off each other, and therefore we all need one another to keep going forward. But now we're in a world where it's people are boxed in. A lot of people are boxed in. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It depends on how you perceive it, isn't it?
So for anyone, if anyone's listening, right, that feels like that, it's anyone can go on and do anything.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
There are millions and millions of people who have changed their life, right? So no label can keep you in the position that you're in. The only factor that keeps you there is the way that you think. And no doubt that being labeled like that has an impact in the way that they think, right? They think, well, this is what I've been labeled as, so this is just me, this is just my reality. But you can change your reality at any moment just by adding a new stimulus. You put yourself in a new environment. You get new friends. You start taking in new information instead of going home from your job feeling shit, watching the news, going to bed, because that's you've been in your job, in your minimum wage job, being labelled as minimum wage, being managed by a manager who is telling you what to do. You feel shit. You go home. You watch the news, or you watch TV. You try and escape. You do something, but it keeps you in that position, right?
Yeah.
You wake up the next day. You do it all over again. So you add new stimulus. You add new information into that cycle, and you can create a new reality. But it does start within you. It starts within the person doing that, and within.
I think that's a very valid point, man. And I think that's one thing someone could get out of this podcast today, is that we're all human, and we have the ability to create those new neural pathways and ideas, as long as we can find a stimulus. And sometimes you do need to get out of your environment, mix with different people, you know, whatever you're into, and start, you know, creating those pathways into your future rather than being stuck on the same sort of circuit and feeling lost.
Yeah. One question I get people to ask themselves is, if you wanted to progress in life, you wanted to start a business, you wanted to start a new career, ask yourself, who within my circle can I get advice from? And if there's no one in your circle that you can get good advice from, then that is a key indicator that you need to get out of that circle, or you need to introduce something new. You need to start hanging around with new people. You need to start bringing in some new information, a new stimulus into your environment. Because if you can't go to someone in your circle and get advice, then that means the information that you're surrounding yourself with is limiting. So they say that you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with, right? That's the saying.
Yeah.
The people around you, you're the average of them. So if you're unhappy with where you are right now, and you look around you, then you can probably get an answer as to why you feel the way that you do right now. Because if you were surrounding yourself with positivity, with people who pushed you and helped you to progress, you would be receiving that type of energy and you would be progressing. So if you're not progressing, there's a reason for that. It's because you don't have the right things and the right people around you.
I completely agree with that. I mean, from my experience, if certain friends, if I spent more time with them, I would definitely do the things that they do, right? Which wouldn't be progressive for me and my goals and my ambition. That's partly why I am with Nathan a lot, because he's on a similar pathway and he thinks outside the box. And I think the more creative people you can be around with the same sort of drive, then you're on a trajectory to something way more positive than being stuck in those sort of subcultures. It's easy to get dragged into that, and it's hard because some of these friends are like friends from school, so you've got genuine relationships with, and you don't want to cut them off completely. But I have thought that about some of my friends in the past, like what do they actually bring to the table? I'm giving them more than they're giving me, and it's a tough, conversation that you have to have with yourself. But I do think there is a place where you can balance it out, and the way I've done it is not cut people off, but I've just time management. For me, that's what's worked for me, making sure I spend the right time in the area that I want to go and the environments that I want to be in, and then limit to the ones that.
So it depends on how serious you want to take this, right?
Yeah.
Now, and how serious you take yourself and your career and whatever it is that you're doing. Now, I was at an event a few weeks ago, and there were some pretty big guys there. We're talking 7-figure businesses. And one of the guys said something that really, really hit home with me, and it was around his time. And he said he doesn't waste his time, because time is the most valuable commodity that we have.
Agreed.
It is more valuable than anything. You can never get it back. Now, he has a brother that he doesn't allow to call him anymore with bullshit. Unless it's a genuine thing that he needs real help with, or it's for positive, progressive conversation, his own brother's not allowed to call him anymore.
Jesus,
this
man.
guy is a super successful guy. So it all depends on how serious you want to take it. Now that made me think, because I have some energy drainers in my life, right? My family, for one, that I give too much time to. Now, I am a very serious person when it comes to my career and my goals and my ambitions. They're the most important things in my life, aside from my daughter and my fiance. Just want to put that one in there.
Yeah, you've probably
Safety first, Scare.
But I have had to cut people out of my life, because what's more important to me is achieving my goals and my dreams and my ambitions, so I can retire my parents and provide generational wealth to my children, my grandchildren, and beyond. Is that more? Is hanging around with an old school friend more important than those goals, dreams, and ambitions, and what I can create? For me, no. So if someone's got to go, they've got to go. But it depends how serious you want to take it. That's my own opinion. I'm not saying that's something that someone should adopt, but it is around time and how you spend your time.
Guys, it's been an absolute eye-opener for me today, this conversation.
Yeah.
You've taught me a thing or two, man, for sure. And I think our viewers and listeners have definitely learned a thing or two from this. You got anything to add before we wrap up?
Just go and follow your dreams. Follow your passions, wherever it is. Don't matter what it is, don't matter what people say. If you want to go and live in nature, go and do it, you know. You want to, just whatever it is, go and follow it. If you want to be a millionaire and your parents laugh at you, that's what my parents, that's my goal. That's what my parents would do. My parents would be like, "You on about, ain't no one been a millionaire in this family. What are you talking about?"
So that's a good point, man. You got to do what you feel is for you at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, follow what's in your head, man. You know, don't don't accept other people's limitations, and don't live your life based on other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, I think Gethyn, it's been a pleasure, man. It's really enjoyed having a chat with you today. Anything to add, Mike?
we'll drop your socials in the bio.
Yeah,
Give me a
in the
follow.
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, give you a follow, man.
For some positivity and mindset.
For sure.
Yeah,
And business.
great, man. So
Sure there's more to add. But yeah, I just want to thank all our viewers and listeners. And if everyone could drop us a like, a follow, and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. See you on the next episode of the Talking Rally podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.